Alex Kahn. Scientologists believe that surrounding the Earth is something that traps their Thetan and other Thetans here, right? What's that thing? Why can't they escape it? How high is it? Would SpaceX flights mean Thetans could escape TGAC and take over new bodies elsewhere? If so, why isn't Scientology investing in space travel research? Okay, this is a completely ludicrous idea, and I'm answering it just to show, actually, the kind of drivel and nonsense that would come out of Hubbard's mouth and not get a whole lot more follow-up. And he just makes this stuff up, as he's going with these lectures. In the early 1950s especially, Hubbard had a lot to say about the whole track and space opera and intergalactic civilizations and stuff like that. Then later, in the early 1960s, during the St. Hill Special Briefing Course, Hubbard gave lectures 2 to 3 times a week, and he alluded also there to a lot of space, intergalactic civilization, whole track stuff. And in 1966 or in 67, he came up with the Xenu story. So there's a lot of mythology in this body of work, and a lot of it doesn't fit or gel well together. It takes real mental gymnastics to put all of his comments together in such a way that you get a picture that actually makes some degree of sense, because there's contradictory statements, and there's things he says here, and then he says this something about that over here that sounds like it doesn't really go with it. And it would just take me hours to lay it all out for you because it's pretty confusing stuff. One of those things that he talked about was the fact that there are screens, as he called it. He said there's screens that keep Thetans on Earth, right? So that when you die, you can't just take off. You got to go get another body here. You're prevented from leaving. See, now he says that, he just drops that line in the middle of a lecture, and then later he says that there are installations on Mars and on Venus that are controlling this population, and that he could, or you could, go to Mars, spiritually now, I'm talking about, like, you exteriorize from your body and you go to Mars, and that they'll trap you, that these installations have what he called theta traps, where you as a Thetan could get sucked in with these electronic beams and screens and whatnot and force fields that they have in place, and that they will trap you and implant you and make you forget things and then shoot you back to Earth. So you're kind of like, I would have loved to have, sat Hubbard down at some point and said, could you just lay all this out a little bit more clearly, because the things you say here and here and here, they don't really gel, they don't jive. There's all this stuff that you're throwing around. He talked about the pyramids being, intergalactic, like wayports or something, and how there were invader forces fighting it out here on Earth, out of sight of the human civilization, right? They'd have these battles and whatnot, and how Egyptian hieroglyphics show characters with blast guns, in holsters and whatnot. I mean, he just alluded to all kinds of stuff, and it's just sort of like off the top of his head, he's just throwing this stuff out there. And I don't think he really gave it a whole lot of thought as far as, integration from one story to the next. I think he just thought clever thoughts and threw them out there, and just little tidbits here, and I don't think he ever thought that anybody was ever going to one day try to figure out this whole mythology of what is he talking about, So there's a lot of this stuff all throughout the lectures of L. Ron Hubbard's works. And we used to eat this stuff up. And I'm just going to tell you straight up, I used to love this stuff. I just thought, because I thought that he had some concept or picture in his head of how this all laid out. And so I would follow all this stuff, and I was really, a devil for the details, and I would really get into all this. And I was trying to piece together how this all worked and what the mythology actually was. And I didn't call it mythology, I called it truth. I thought this was how things had actually happened, right? So, these screens that are supposed to hold Thetans down on Earth, well, that's ridiculous, because, how could that be When Hubbard then says in the lecture that he was cruising through the, asteroid belt last night when he was, exteriorized from his body, like nobody said, hey, Hubbard, how are you cruising around in the asteroid belt when you said there were screens that kept us all here on Earth? Like nobody ever challenged him on this stuff, at least not that I ever heard of, and not publicly. Nobody ever stood up in the middle of a lecture and said, dude, come on, that never happened. So, so this stuff is just, there's all this mutually exclusive nonsense. It's fun. It was really, really interesting when I was in. I ate it up. I thought it was fascinating. And now I look at it and I just go, God, what a dope I was. So